Hi, welcome to the Tread of Pioneers Museum Christmas Storytime and Craft. My name's Katie and I'll be leading you through this activity. Please come visit the Tread of Pioneers Museum when we are open. We should be opening soon on Fridays and Saturdays, and you can check our website at treadofpioneers.org for the up-to-date information on our opening. Please also like us on Facebook so you can hear what's going on. We do offer youth programs to homeschool and online school students as well as school students this year. Please also subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have lots of videos for youth on our channel as well. So today we are going to learn about how the pioneers celebrated their first Christmas here in Steamboat Springs and the Yampa Valley. In the mid-1870s, a family by the name of the Crawfords came and they built a homestead. It took them a couple of years to live here full time, but they did, and they celebrated Christmas here. We have their recall of their first Christmas that I will read to you. It's written from the perspective of Lulie Crawford, who was 12 at the time. She had two brothers, Logan, who was about 9. Lulie was 12, about 12 at that time, and then they had a much younger brother, John Daniel. So as I read you this story that recounts the first Christmas here in the Yampa Valley, I want you to be thinking about how your Christmas traditions, if you celebrate Christmas, compare with the Crawfords. What kind of food do you have compared to what the Crawfords ate? What kind of presents do you give and receive compared to what the Crawfords had? And did you make your presents or buy them at a store? And then think about the presents that the Crawfords exchanged and whether you think those were made or purchased at a store. At this time in Steamboat, the Crawfords were the only family here full time. There were families nearby that were several miles away, and they would stop in during the winter to say hello and visit. And so they did have some visitors that Christmas. The best way to travel was on skis, long wooden skis. They call them snowshoes in this, but they are long wooden skis. As Christmas approached, and this is Lulie talking here, Pa left by snowshoe to pick up mail, and Ma and Mrs. Bennett, their neighbor that lived a few miles away, worked hard getting ready. They made paper cornucopias filled with homemade candy and raisins, and they decorated a spruce tree Pa had cut with pink ribbons and every bit of brightness they could find in their sparse possessions. I pulled out the red and yellow leaves I had carefully saved from autumn and decorated the cabin with even more color. We were all feeling Christmassy when Pa arrived home with precious letters, newspapers, and 2 exciting-looking packages from Grandma in Missouri. Ma opened one marked popcorn and sundries, and I tingled with anticipation as she tucked the other onto a shelf for Christmas Day. What was inside? My brothers and I spent delightful hours stringing popcorn for the tree and trying to guess what was inside that box. On Christmas morning, it was time for presents. Pa handed me a mysterious package that was hidden among the branches of our tree. The family gathered around as delighted as I was. I wanted to give it to you right off when I fetched it with the last load of provisions, he said, but Ma thought it was best to wait. It was a new sketchbook, a box of colors, and a real camel's hairbrush. Oh, I was so bursting full of happiness I couldn't speak. For the rest of the day, it felt like there was a warm candle burning inside of me. I also got a new collar that Ma had trimmed with feather stitching. There were surprises for everyone. Logan got a homemade sled and a brand new knife with 3 blades. For John Daniel, a homemade jumping jack whose joints jiggled wondrously. I made a boot-shaped pincushion for Ma and embroidered a hat marker for Pa that he liked so much he fastened it onto his leather headband right away. Logan carved miniature boats for each of them out of cottonwood bark. To hold pins or nails, he said, beaming modestly at our family's praise. And the box Grandma had sent was filled with a pencil and a pair of warm mittens for each of us kids and pretty colored pictures to hang on the walls of our cabin. For supper that night, with our guests, we ate trout, venison roast, mince pie, and cottage cheese. The night was full of cheer as we sang and danced to the music from Mr. Bennet's violin. Later, when I opened the door to let out our cat Toby, I looked up at the stars through the frosty, still air. How close they were hung. It was so clear and bright, I thought, surely I can see the Star of Bethlehem up there. So how do Lulie, Logan, and John Daniel's traditions compare to yours? What kind of food do you eat when you celebrate Christmas with your family? What kind of presents do you exchange? Are they similar or different than the presents you just heard about and the food that you just heard about in the Crawfords' first Christmas? I'm going to also share with you one more Pioneer Christmas story. This is called Christmas in the Big Woods. It's by Laura Ingalls Wilder. This book takes place in Wisconsin, where they also had a lot of pioneers at the time this book was written. You will notice a lot of similarities to how Laura in the book spends her Christmas in the woods versus Lulie and the Crawfords. Once upon a time, a little girl named Laura lived in the big woods of Wisconsin in a little house made of logs. Laura lived in the little house with her pa, her ma, her big sister Mary, her little sister Carrie, and their good old bulldog Jack. Christmas was coming and the little house was covered with snow. When Pa came in from shoveling, he caught Laura up in a big bear hug against his cold winter coat. His mustache was covered with melting snowflakes. Ma was busy all day long cooking good things for Christmas. She baked bread and apple pies and filled a big jar with cookies. Laura and Mary got to lick the spoon. Pa and Ma showed Laura and Mary how to make molasses candy by pouring hot sugar and molasses syrup into pans of snow. The syrup hardened at once and turned into candy. Laura and Mary could eat one piece each, but the rest was saved for Christmas Day. The day before Christmas, Aunt Eliza, Uncle Peter, and cousins Peter, Alice, and Ella came to visit. Laura and Mary heard sleigh bells ringing, and then a big bobsled came out of the woods. Aunt Eliza, Uncle Peter, and the cousins were inside, covered up with blankets. When everyone came inside, the little house was filled to the seams. Jack ran around in circles, barking happily. Now there were lots of children to play with. Laura and Mary and the cousins put on their warm coats and mittens and scarves and went outside to make pictures in the soft, deep snow. They played so hard that when night came, they were too excited to sleep, but they knew they must or Santa Claus would not come. So they hung their stockings by the fireplace, put on their red flannel nightgowns, and went to bed. In the morning, they all woke up almost at the same moment and ran to see what was in their stockings. In every stocking was a pair of bright red mittens and a stick of red and white striped peppermint candy. They were so happy they could hardly speak. But Laura was the happiest of all. In her stocking was a beautiful rag doll with black button eyes and a pink and blue calico dress. Laura named her doll Charlotte, and she let all the other children hold her. For Christmas breakfast, Mom made each child a pancake man. All the children held their plates next to the stove and watched while Mom made the pancake men one by one out of pancake batter. Peter ate his up right away, but the girls ate theirs slowly to make them last. It was too cold to go outside, so the children played quietly inside. They ate their candy, admired their mittens, and looked at the pictures in Pa's big green book until it was time for the cousins to go home. Laura held Charlotte in her arms the whole time. At last, Aunt Eliza, Uncle Peter, and the cousins bundled up in their coats and blankets and got into the bobsled. "Goodbye," they called, and off they went into the woods. In a little while, the happy sounds of sleigh bells was gone, and Christmas was over. But what a happy Christmas it had been. So we just heard two stories of a pioneer Christmas, one that happened here in Steamboat and one that happened in Laura's life. So again, I want you to be thinking about the similarities. The traditions that Laura and Luli both have for Christmas in these stories and book are very similar to ours. And those all stemmed from about 30 years before Luli and the Crawfords settled in Steamboat, and they stemmed from a country named England across the ocean. At the time, Queen Victoria ruled England, and her husband was Prince Albert. Prince Albert was from Germany. Germany had very strong Christmas traditions, including a tree that you would cut and decorate the night before Christmas, and then you would keep it for 12 days of Christmas. Victoria and Albert had about 10 kids. They were very popular and very trend-setting when they ruled England, and people really liked to watch what they did and copy it. So it was during that time that the celebration of Christmas became a big mainstream event. Before Victoria ruled England, it really wasn't that big of a deal. People didn't have a lot of money, and there weren't a lot of things to buy. Christmas cards also became popular during that time. So that's where the tree came from. People would decorate the tree with candles because they didn't have electricity, small dollhouse-like furniture, and cornucopias. Now, we heard that Luli and her mom had made cornucopias, and you can see those on our tree here. They traditionally filled cornucopias with candy and nuts, and they would decorate them with lace, ribbon, and pictures of loved ones. Now you can see our tree, we can't have food in the museum, so our tree is decorated with pearls instead of popcorn. And if you look up to the top of our tree, you will see an angel. That's probably, I'm guessing, similar to if you celebrate Christmas, what might be on top of your tree. Angels were really popular during the Victorian era as well. So again, it was Queen Victoria and Prince Albert that kind of really made the celebration of Christmas and all of our traditions really popular. They also did exchange gifts, and that became more popular. In the Victorian and pioneer times, they generally put the gifts in the tree or in the stockings. I noticed that Luli made most of her gifts to her family, as did Logan. Some of the gifts that Luli received were made and some of them were bought. And I noticed that there was a similarity in the book about Laura as well. So I want you to be thinking, is that similar or different to how you celebrate Christmas? Today, we're also going to do a craft, and we will be making our own cornucopias. There will be a list of materials that comes on when this video is over, and they will also be below this video on YouTube. I also have posted a PDF showing other fun Christmas crafts from the Victorian period that you can do with your family. So with the cornucopia template that is under this video, you can go ahead and print that out on any paper that you want. You could do it on white paper, you could do it on colored regular paper, you can do it on cardstock, or you could just make, if you have a doily, you can just curl it up into a cone shape. You don't have to use a template. You can also search for a template online. I made this template just with a salad plate and a ruler. If you do use a template, you just want to trace it after you cut it out. Trace it on the paper of your choice. And you cut it out. The fun thing about this is it doesn't matter what kind of materials you have. They're all really pretty. Now they will all be very beautiful when you're done. I'm just making sure I'm folding the right side. So the template does tell you which side to fold on. And I try to do it about the width of a piece of tape because I'm going to be using double-sided tape. Glue sticks also work. I prefer double-sided tape. I just think it's a little bit easier to handle, and then I think it just adheres well. So smaller hands do better with regular paper than with cardstock. So then once you have it folded, you can use a table to press down on. Just get that tape stuck really well. And these cornucopias, sometimes you might have to push it out with something, but once you have it the way you want it, they usually hold their shape pretty well. I like to secure the top with a staple. If you would like to have this as an ornament or as a gift, you can use a hole puncher or just something that you can poke through the top of the cornucopia, and then you can attach a ribbon or a pipe cleaner. Oops. So it has a handle. That way you can hang it on a tree or hand it to someone as a gift. To decorate the outside, you can use whatever you want. Get creative, glitter, stickers, it doesn't matter. Also under this video, I do have some traditional Victorian Christmas pictures that you can print out, cut out, and color, and you can stick on your cornucopia like that. Ribbon, any Christmas, colored or not, ribbon, you can just tape or glue on. You can glue it this way, or you can just tape it or glue it around. And again, I find success with double stick tape a little bit more than glue sticks, depending on the material of the ribbons. Now, the filling, you can fill it. I like to put the candy or the popcorn or the pretzels or whatever it is inside a plastic bag. It's just a little bit neater, like a small Ziploc bag or a craft bag, and then you can set it inside. These make great Christmas tree ornaments and great gifts for your family. Thanks so much for visiting us virtually, the Tread of Pioneers Museum. You can always, again, like us on Facebook to hear more about our youth and adult events. We do have a winter full of virtual events coming up, and as soon as it's safe, we will continue on with our tradition of live events as well. There are several other videos on YouTube for youth about pioneers, making pioneer toys, making pioneer soap, and there's a couple of pioneer read-alouds on there as well. Thanks. Happy holidays.